I live with my parents now, so you, a stranger, should just move into a cheap facility. What's the big deal, huh? My husband, whom I believed would make me happy, was just using me. I was betrayed by my in-laws and was shocked. I realized that this mother and son duo hadn't noticed their own naivety. Who's gonna pay the bills if they kick me out? I realized that there's no point in being a family with these people. I knew what I had to do next. I immediately contacted everyone and began preparations. What happened to the appliances? I had a service come and pick them up. What? The next day, I called a service and had them pick up all the furniture and appliances. My husband was in a panic and started yelling. My name is Michelle Thompson, 35 years old. I've been working from home since graduating from college. I only commute once a month, but I'm a full-time employee. The company has been very accommodating. That's because both of my legs are disabled. So, I use a wheelchair to move around the house. This happened because I had a motorcycle accident in college. A car rear-ended me on the highway, and I was thrown into the air. It felt like time was moving in slow motion. This is it for me. I clearly remember thinking that as I was sent flying. Luckily, my life wasn't in danger. But my legs became immobile. I've been doing rehab ever since, but they probably won't get better. I've been in a wheelchair for years. I guess I'll probably remain single for the rest of my life. Once I had come to terms with my condition, my old desire to get married resurfaced. One day, my friends set up a blind date for me. That's where I met my husband, Ken. He's 5 years older than me, but he looked younger than his age. What surprised me was his behavior, which seemed way too immature for a 40-year-old. To put it nicely, he's a very straightforward guy. He didn't hesitate to ask all sorts of questions after seeing me in a wheelchair. How do you eat? How about household chores? Can you do the laundry? How's work? Can you go to the bathroom by yourself? How about taking baths? Everyone else was being careful around me, but Ken didn't hold back at all. I'd never met anyone like that before, and I was actually pleased. Most people wouldn't ask about my legs. But Ken, as brazen as he was, asked me everything. Most would find him rude, but I was glad. He was genuinely interested in me. We dated a few more times and eventually became a couple. I believed I could be happy with him. Back then, I could only see Ken and thought I wouldn't meet anyone else who would want to be with me forever. So, when Ken proposed to me after dating for just 6 months, I was over the moon. But right after we got married, things changed. When Ken and I moved in together, we decided on my standalone house. Even though it's a standalone house, it's a rental. It's a bit on the pricey side, but it's very accommodating for someone living in a wheelchair. I think the previous tenant probably made the place more accessible. Ken really liked the spaciousness of the house. Since I spent a lot of time at home, I did most of the housework. Every once in a while, when I was feeling exhausted, I'd ask him for help, but he'd just say, "I'm beat today," and wouldn't lift a finger. He wouldn't even help me in the bath. Seriously? I'm not doing that. Technically, I can manage on my own, but it takes a lot longer. When I was living alone, I had a caregiver come twice a week to assist me in the bath. I was used to taking care of the other 5 days on my own, but I always wished Ken would help, it would be so much quicker. Every time, I spent a long while getting into the bath. I no longer ask for the caregiver's help. Ken said it was a waste of money. As I was bathing, a thought crossed my mind. My arms are getting tired. The bathroom was originally designed to be accessible. That was a selling point when we chose the place. But when Ken would take a bath first, he wouldn't put away the bath bucket and would leave shampoo bottles on the floor. Picking those up takes even more time. Hey, could you please think about making it a little easier for me when I bathe alone? Just let me have a bath without overthinking it. No matter what I said, Ken wouldn't listen. This house is designed for you to live comfortably. I moved in for you, and you still complain? You wanted to move in too, Ken.
When did I ever say that?
This house was originally my place. That's why it's set up for someone in a wheelchair. The first time I invited Ken over, he looked at the spaciousness and the appliances with stars in his eyes. I had invested a bit in electronics and furniture.
I'd love to live here after we're married.
But now he says, this handrail is such a nuisance. It's like living in an old person's home. Why would you say that?
Yeah, I should have looked more closely before.
After we started living together, it finally dawned on me. The reason Ken married me was because of the house, the appliances, and the fact that I could handle household chores. Indeed, when we met at a social gathering, he kept asking if I could handle household tasks. Despite my disability, Ken received praises from his colleagues and friends for being such a wonderful husband. That's so far from the truth. He's just taking advantage of the fact that I can do everything by myself, despite my disability. And to top it off, he's been jobless and partying every night since we started dating. Realizing all this after getting married is heart-wrenching and makes me want to cry. Still, I didn't break up with him. I mean, there must be some love there since we got married, right? I kept telling myself that. Hey, give me some allowance.
You got some just the other day, right?
Yeah, but I spent it already. Slowly, Ken started to rely on me for money without working. I reached out to Ken's mother for advice.
Ken doesn't seem to want to work. What should I do?
He's always been working hard. Maybe he just needs a break. Even though she said I could come to her with anything, she always took her son's side. She'd say it's natural since he's an only child, but I wasn't convinced. I've lost both my parents, so I don't have any family to turn to. I felt utterly lost. I considered talking to a friend about it, but the last time I vented a bit, they told me, I wish that I had such problems. Ken always puts on a good front. That evening, I was reprimanded by Ken.
Hey, did you go blabbering to Mom?
About work?
Yeah. Why would you worry an older person like that? Can't believe you, seriously.
Well, maybe you should work so I don't have to worry. After I said that, Ken stormed out. Typical. He always leaves when things don't go his way. And then he'd come back drunk early in the morning.
I'm back, babe.
It's early, don't disturb the neighbors. Keep it down.
Shut up. Don't boss me around.
When he's drunk, he's uncontrollable. All I can do in situations like these is to keep quiet and bear with it. I think I'm reaching my limit. I was starting to think that way. But the thought of being alone again was heartbreaking. I was torn between enduring this situation or living out the rest of my life single. The thought of divorce became more prominent. Then, out of the blue, Ken suggested, I'm thinking of living with my parents.
What? You mean move to their place?
No, they'll move in here. He acted as if it was a given they'd move in. And he had already decided they'd be staying at our place. I understand wanting to be near aging parents. But both are still healthy, so I don't get why they'd want to move from their own house to ours.
Do they really need to stay here? It's gonna be cramped with 4 people, and I work from home, so it'll be an inconvenience.
You're always thinking about yourself, huh? I never thought you were this selfish.
I'm just saying, why do they need to move here when they have their own place?
Our place is bigger, more modern, and has all the conveniences. Plus, it's accessible for elders. If Ken's parents moved in, I'd have to be on my toes during work hours. Ken's rarely home, but his parents would likely be around a lot since they're retired. Sharing the bathroom, kitchen. I'm slower than most people. I could easily imagine the strain of such a living situation. Can I have some time to think?
You better hurry up. We don't have much time.
Even though he said there wasn't much time, Ken sure didn't wait. By the weekend, he brought his parents over. I suspect they'd been discussing this move for a while now. You know, I've been thinking, maybe you should consider a facility?
What?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
A facility? For me?
Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You have your own limits, right? In a facility, they take care of everything. It seemed he was not just thinking about his parents moving in, but also about sending me away.
I'd visit you from time to time.
That woke me up. If not now, then when?
Ken, what do you think I am to you?
Huh?
You're my wife, right? Would you really tell your beloved wife to go to a facility?
Hold on.
When did I say I love you, Michelle?
I felt my face flush with anger. This guy, Ken, was using me. Didn't I know it all along? Wasn't it my fault for letting it get to this point? I thought I had to draw a line. Then, even more unbelievable words came out of Ken's mouth.
In this house, I'm gonna live with my parents. You, an outsider, can go live in some cheap facility. What did you just say?
I looked to his parents, hoping for some support, but they just had these eerie grins on their faces.
Why are you laughing?
What's the big deal, huh? Were they targeting my home even before our marriage? Things have been escalating too fast lately. I need to kick these people out.
Please, leave.
What?
Leave, now. How can you talk to my parents like that?
I felt like I saw the real Ken. He was yelling at me with such fury. If he cares so much for his parents, why doesn't he earn his own money and build them a house? Why does he have to take mine? I felt like my head was on fire.
It's okay, Ken. Michelle must have been shocked since we came unexpectedly, his mother said. We just came to check the place today. Yeah, we need to check before moving in. Looks like there are more appliances than last time. Seems comfy to live in.
They are seriously here to take my home. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. As I took in the oxygen, a sudden question popped into my mind. If I leave, how are they planning to survive? His parents are on a pension and Ken's just a part-timer. I'm covering all the rent and living expenses. Who's gonna pay the $2,800 a month? Do his parents think Ken's earning the living expenses? Ignoring my concerns, his parents cheerfully left. Ken left with them.
I'm gonna stay at my parents' tonight. Hold on, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. I, the man of the house, have decided. I won't change my mind.
I was left alone, in shock. But I couldn't just stay like that. I immediately called a real estate agent I knew. Ken didn't come back that night, probably celebrating with his parents. I quickly sorted out essential and non-essential belongings. When Ken returned the next day, he saw the organized stuff and laughed.
Oh? Started packing? Found a place to move to already?
Yes, I have. Ken looked genuinely surprised by my prompt response. And, here's the card of a divorce lawyer. Here you go, Ken. From now on, let's communicate through the lawyer.
A divorce? Why? If you're kicking me out, there's no point in being married anymore, right?
Ken looked as if he had been hit by a ton of bricks. He hadn't expected me to bring up a divorce.
You can't live without me, right? I don't understand what you mean. Who else would marry you? I can live on my own. But you said you wanted to get married.
Only now did I realize how arrogant and overconfident Ken was. He approached me thinking I was a lonely, disabled single woman. I'm independent, have money, and never struggle with my living. Plus, I stay home all the time, so I handle all the chores. For him, I'm the ideal woman. Money keeps coming in even if he doesn't work. He thought I wouldn't leave because I couldn't find anyone else. That's why he was shocked when I casually brought up divorce.
Why? You know, if you divorce me, you might be single for the rest of your life. Well, if it means living a married life with you, I'd rather be single forever. Whether I spend the rest of my life alone isn't for you to decide.
The usually submissive me was now fighting back, and he was getting flustered. I could tell that Ken was panicking. I never thought he was such a weak man. I don't know why I had been putting up with him for so long. Once I decided on the divorce, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I guess I had been too focused on getting married.
Anyway, you don't have to move out right away. I didn't mean to rush you into a facility that soon.
Oh, it's fine. I'll do as you wish. Don't worry.
You won't find a place that fast. Think it over, okay?
I've already secured a place, so it's all right.
What? Wait a minute. Isn't this too soon?
I watched Ken's changing attitudes, from smugness to panic. He's quite the handful. As I calmed down, I found him increasingly irritating.
The facility staff are informed and know about my situation, so everything's fine. When did you even set all this up? Were you preparing all along?
Yes, even before I met you. Actually, I had been considering my retirement and had an eye on a certain facility. It's more like a condo. After an injury, during my hospital stay, I read various investment books. I had decided to invest in stocks and real estate. I had diversified investments between my salary and my parents' inheritance. The facility I had my eye on, I had already purchased and had been renting it out for income. I never mentioned this to Ken. It's my hidden asset.
We don't need to get a divorce. I get it. You can stay here. Let's live with my parents. Do you not get it? Why would I ever do that?
He seems pretty dense. Even after bringing up divorce, he still seems to believe he's the only one for me.
Sorry, but my mind's made up. What's your problem? You're so selfish. If you come crying back later, it's not my problem.
I won't be, so don't worry. Ken fell silent, deep in thought. It must have been a few hours. During that time, I was packing up my things. Then I heard Ken making a phone call. It sounded like he was talking to his parents. Pathetic, needing to rely on his parents for such decisions. As I thought this, Ken suddenly came to me.
Fine. We'll get a divorce. Just leave quickly,
Ken said begrudgingly. Maybe he'll miss having me around, like a housemaid. But he probably thought that living with his parents would save him from household chores. He has a house and it's fully furnished. No issues for daily life, at least for now. With that thought, he headed back to his parents' home.
I'm gonna go talk to my folks about what's next. Get ready to move out quickly.
Yes, I'll do that. I finished moving all my stuff in a week. During that time, Ken never showed up. We met again a day after the move was done. It was when I was trying to start my new life in my new house. Ken called me to come outside and said, "Hey, what's going on? This place is almost empty. Where are the appliances?"
I had a service pick up those items for me. What?
I had called a service the next day and had them collect all the furniture and appliances. My husband became agitated and started grumbling. Not only Ken, but also his parents were there.
All the appliances here were bought by me. They are all from when I was single. The only thing that's yours is right there.
There were only 3 cardboard boxes. I did leave the clear clothing container we bought after marriage.
Michelle, we can't live with this. We need to split the property if we're divorcing. That's right. We can't live here like this.
What are you talking about? Nobody can live here.
What do you mean?
The rent's $2,000, you know? Ken and his parents were stunned. I had told Ken when we got married.
This isn't your own house?
No, it isn't. I got a bit of a discount on the rent because I asked a real estate agent I know. If I move out, the rent will go up even more. Given that this is a property with disability access, and I've already received several inquiries from people with the same concerns, I recommended that they move out.
Why didn't you tell us sooner? What are we gonna do now?
I don't know. I did tell Ken.
I didn't hear about it. I'll sue you.
I saw that coming. Honestly, from an outsider's perspective, it might look like I selfishly got a divorce, broke the lease, and took all the furniture and appliances. But I was sure.
You can sue, but do you even have the money for it?
Ken's face twisted. He can't afford a lawyer. Even if by some miracle he could, I have an ace up my sleeve. I showed them some pictures.
When did you take these?
The pictures showed Ken gambling and womanizing.
I spent my money on this. I'm ready to use these in court. Ken, what the hell? I thought everything was going well.
It seems his parents were particularly agitated. What's going on? Then, suddenly, Ken started to apologize.
I'm sorry. Please come back. I need you, Michelle. You're the one who kicked me out. We're already divorced, so what are you talking about? Besides, you don't love me, do you? If that's the case, I'll just leave.
Then, this time, even Ken's parents began to apologize next to him.
We don't have a place to live anymore.
That was a shock.
What do you mean? Our house got foreclosed on.
Turns out, Ken's family home will be repossessed in a few weeks. They've gone bankrupt. The debt that his father accumulated grew like a snowball and became an amount that's impossible for retirees to pay. Ken, who used to receive an allowance from his parents when he was single, probably thought he was in trouble and decided to get married hoping for support. Now I understand why his mother was so kind before we got married.
I can't help you now, we're strangers. Even if my folks and I end up homeless, are you okay with that? You brought it on yourself, didn't you? Can't you at least give me the electronics and furniture? You've got money, don't you, Michelle? Are you planning to sell them?
His ulterior motive was clear as day. I firmly told him I had no intention of giving him even one piece of furniture or electronics.
Please don't say that. Have some mercy.
It's too late for apologies now.
Sort it out on your own. That's why I'm asking. I can't sort it out.
I told Ken and his father, who were so persistent, that if they couldn't pay the rent, they should move out. The place is in my name, so if I cancel the lease, that's the end of it. Evicting them was easy. In the end, even if the lease was transferred, jobless Ken probably couldn't afford to live here. I heard all of this from the real estate agent.
I can't pay the rent.
In the end, I decided to cancel the lease here. I no longer need this place, and since the divorce is final, everything is over. I somehow kicked out the stunned family of 3 and locked the door.
What are we gonna do now?
I can move into a facility.
Goodbye. Facilities like that probably have no freedom and are the worst, right? Good luck in that crappy environment.
Maybe Ken felt unsatisfied not having the last word, because he spat out those bitter words. I ignored Ken and his parents and left the scene. But Ken wasn't going to stay put. A few days later, he showed up at the facility where I had moved.
Hey! What's this about?
Looking at the facility where I was, Ken looked like he was about to faint.
It's not a crappy environment at all. It's a luxury facility worth $1 million.
I had saved up money, and with the earnings from my investments, I bought this place. The previous occupant had left at the perfect time, so I was able to move in immediately. With the sale of my house and some extra income, I still had plenty left over. This facility is top-notch with doctors and helpers on site. The floor plan is just like an apartment, with plenty of privacy. The room is a 3-bedroom, so families can live together. There are even couples and families living here. I can call a helper with the push of a button, and there's assisted bathing every day. I originally thought of this as my final residence, but I'm glad I made the move.
You had this much money? Then why?
I really don't want you coming all the way here. We're strangers now. Please leave. Then, Ken suddenly started acting all sweet towards me. Honestly, it's creepy.
Can't you just let me live here?
What are you talking about? That's impossible. We're divorced. Face reality.
That's why, let's get remarried. I'm living in a motel now. Isn't that pitiful? I can't get a job because I don't have an address at the motel.
He's such a smooth talker. He seems to have quickly abandoned his own parents. In the end, he only thinks about himself.
Why don't you take a look in the mirror?
You look pathetic.
Living off your parents at your age, becoming a freeloader after marriage, and now begging on the streets.
Ken's face turned bright red.
You're not ashamed to be clinging to your ex-wife?
Look, everyone's watching, aren't they? Residents peeking from their balconies were watching. Actually, I had asked them in advance to look out if my ex-husband came to visit. I thought Ken would surely come looking for me at least once. Either to gloat over my miserable state in the facility or to beg. I always expected him to show up for one reason or another. The residents were very cooperative. They purposely looked at Ken with pity. It's like a real-life drama. I want to applaud them. Ken finally noticed the stares and seemed to realize how embarrassing he was being.
I won't ask anymore.
With a pale face, he muttered those words and disappeared. I don't think he'll come here anymore. Later, when I went out, I ran into my mother-in-law working at a supermarket checkout. My father-in-law was a janitor, and my mother-in-law was a cashier. As soon as my mother-in-law spotted me, she turned her face and tried to hide. She was being scolded by a young employee for her attitude. Ken was apparently introduced to a job by someone he met at the motel cafe and was being exploited at a very low-paying job site. I frequently host home parties and live happily every day with people from the same facility. I also became good friends with other wheelchair users. If I had known such a community existed, I would have moved here sooner. I found the time to attend physical therapy sessions. My current goal is to get my legs moving on my own. I lead a fulfilling life both at work and in private.